Hey guys, and welcome to this episode of the CREW podcast. I'm your host, Chesley White.
And I'm Mareena Register.
Yeah, so how's it going today?
Pretty good. Good Monday.
What'd you do this past weekend?
Okay, actually, my friend came in from Augusta.
Nice.
She traveled to India with me back when we went for work. And so she just wanted to go to all my favorite spots in Greenville.
Oh my gosh, so you basically got to do everything you love here.
Yes.
With someone else.
But at the same time, I was like, this is kind of like a normal weekend for me because I just do the things I love to do. But I will say I took her to the bake room for morning buns.
Nice.
Because they're my favorite thing. And then we also went to Gianna for...
oh, that's one of my favorite restaurants.
I had oysters, and I had this chicken piccata that was amazing. But then we went to a new place that my friend had suggested that I never tried. It's up in Travelers Rest, and you do tastings of olive oils and balsamics. And so the lady there, Charlotte, she's the best. Like, shout out to Crescent Olive because they were the most fun thing we did this weekend.
Cool.
And you take bread, and you can, like, try all these different flavors, and then she gives you ice cream to try her dark balsamics because they have, like, raspberry flavored and tangerine flavored.
And that was actually good?
It's amazing.
Wow, okay.
Like, truly amazing. I bought way too much stuff. But yeah, it was super fun.
I've never thought about just tasting balsamic vinegar.
I never would have either, but it really changed the game. And I just realized that when I said all my favorite places, it was just all food.
Of course.
Like,
I'm not
all
surprised
food places
at all
in
by that.
Greenville, so.
But that's great. That's awesome.
Super fun.
Well, cool. Well, we have an exciting episode today.
Yes. I was so excited for us to have Shelby on because she just seems like the coolest person.
That's right. So
and she is the coolest person.
We were talking to Shelby Dodson with first vice president with CBRE today, and man, like it was just such a impactful episode, I think, to know where what she sees in the Greenville real estate market, where we're going, trends that Greenville's experiencing, and just also some personal finance knowledge too that I thought was amazing. I mean, we are doing the same thing. She's like step 20, I'm step 10, but life goals.
Yes,
so,
for sure. So
yeah.
I think she gave us some good insight into her life and how she thinks about things, but also some really good trends in Greenville real estate, which is
it was
really what we're all
interesting
about
to hear for sure. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and let's bring her in.
We'd like to welcome Shelby Dodson here to our show today. She is the first vice president at CBRE. So welcome, Shelby. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
How you doing today?
So far, so good.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. So you're a commercial real estate broker with CBRE. Obviously, you've been doing this for a while. I'm eager to hear your background and your story, how you got started doing this in the first place. So start us off at the beginning. How did you get into the industry?
Well, so I've been with CBRE for 11 years now. I went to Clemson for undergraduate school, and then I quickly went back for graduate school to get my master's in real estate development. And I graduated in 2010, which was pretty much the bottom of the market with a degree, a master's in real estate development when nothing's being built. So that was a little bit of a challenging time. I had just come off of an internship in Shanghai doing some underwriting for the World Expo. So that was an interesting experience, but I was anxious to get back to the U.S. and got a job with CBRE in Greenville, South Carolina. They had never had a female broker really before.
Really?
Wow.
That's interesting.
That had really been able to gain substantial ground in the market.
Mm-hmm.
So they were anxious to get a female broker in and kind of train them up. And it became a really good opportunity. And candidly, I always wanted to be in a bigger market. I had worked in other larger cities in the past and did not want to be in Greenville, South Carolina, but figured I could just get CBRE on my resume and then maybe transfer to a bigger office. Yeah. And 11 years later, I'm still in the Greenville office with CBRE, and I wouldn't have it any other way. But with the development background, I sort of just ended up in brokerage because there wasn't a lot to do in the development arena at the time that I graduated. So now that I've been in brokerage for a while and development has had the opportunity to come back, that is kind of a side passion project and something that I like to be involved in kind of separately from brokerage, which is some redevelopment of historic or brownfield sites, which is something that I sort of always had a passion for, but fell into with some people that I've met through the brokerage industry and actually some connections through CREW as well. So it's been great.
Yeah. Because I know that we got to go out and see Plush Mills, and that was such a huge project and so interesting. Is there anything, like, was that also something you kind of fell into? Because it seems like you had such a huge hand in Plush Mills as well.
Well, so that was the first development I worked on with Mark Peters with M. Peters Group, and he was looking for a project, and I was just obsessed with that building, and I drag him out there. We're standing in it, and there's, people just trespassing and living in it, and not the safest part of town at the time, and just telling him just wide-eyed, if I could just buy or invest in anything, it would be this building. And I think most people would have just like run out of there and thought I was nuts. Mark was like, all right, let's do it. Do you want to work on it together? And I was like, oh my gosh, yes, I'm so excited. And so that was really kind of the first one that ended up snowballing into several others and becoming kind of a larger project too. And so now Mark and I are also working on the redevelopment of the historic Newry Mill in Clemson. So that'll be 198 units, apartment units with a cafe, kind of grocery, general store, and there's a U.S. post office there as well with some trails, and we're excited about that project too.
That sounds super exciting.
And what about on the same property as the Plush Mills? Are you still working on that project?
Yes, and that has a lot of avenues in which we're kind of considering right now. It's obviously a great site for medical. We've looked at some medical uses. There's a office building plan, which is a little bit unique in that accepting kind of folks that want to invest and have some ownership, but also tenancy to kind of get that one off the ground. And right now, it's been a real focus in the city to get a grocery store on the West End. And so we're also talking to some of the smaller grocers about taking a retail site there,
cool.
Which living right there, I can tell you, I mean, it's truly a food desert, and it's a major, major need right there.
That's awesome. So how did you develop your partnership with Mark? Like, what did that look like as you got going, and like dividing responsibilities and what it looked like? I mean,
it's still kind of a fluid process.
Okay.
Just kind of based on, evaluating goals and time frames, and he's built a bigger team now, and he's doing a lot of stuff that I'm not involved in, and that's just based on kind of sheer time and interests, and also, I mean, he has a lot of experience in other areas and interest in other areas, and he has several family members that have moved back to Greenville that are kind of helping on some projects, and he's doing a lot of low-income housing projects and just some other HUD projects in different areas. And so it's just sort of case by case on what we want to work on together and how we want to divide it up and kind of move forward with that process.
Gotcha.
So it's fluid, and I have other business partners too through CBRE, and enjoy working on stuff with them too, and other friends. I mean, when you've been in commercial real estate for a while, and especially through CREW, you end up with a base of people and exposure to different projects that you either want to invest in, or it always just seems kind of interesting how you get involved in different stuff.
Yeah, I love that. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to say, it sounds like each day for you is probably like a little bit different depending on which project you're working on or what you're doing, if it's developing or more broker. But what does like a day in the life of Shelby look like?
Okay, so I still probably spend the majority of my time brokering and predominantly office leasing, which has been hugely interesting through COVID and then after COVID, and I'm sure we'll talk more about that.
Yeah.
Right now, my days are just crazy busy. Summer is actually usually really, really slow. Typically in brokerage, for office decisions to be made, you have to have the majority of the C-suite like in town and engaged, which means things just don't happen in the summer or Thanksgiving or Christmas. Usually these are our very slow times of the year. It's hugely different from residential where people are working nights and weekends. It's like if the CFO and the CEO aren't in the office, like nothing's going to happen. So this summer is different because people waited all of 2020 to do everything and pretty much the first half of 2021 to do anything. So this summer is just crazy busy with people trying to make up for lost time and make some real estate decisions. And so my normal day seems like some combination of responding to RFPs, and going on site tours, meeting with tenants about their space needs and kind of their goals, and also really helping tenants in this changing kind of real estate environment evaluate what are their needs today and forecast what are their needs going to be.
Yeah.
What do employees expect out of their office environments now, and what sort of flexibility can employers offer while still kind of maintaining their brand and just the accountability and management and level of collaboration while offering some amount of flexibility. And what should their office space look like? What should, on the landlord side, what does janitorial look like now?
Right.
If you have closer workstations, what does your parking allocations look like? Are people all in the office at the same time, or can you maybe seat 100 people but only need 70 parking spaces? So it's kind of it's very fluid right now.
What are you seeing? I mean, are decisions being made about those items right now?
Yeah, so it's interesting. So in Greenville, our office environment's made up of a lot more small companies. I mean, we still have the Fortune 500s, but we also have a lot of smaller regional groups and local companies, startups, those sorts of things. And the smaller the companies, the faster it seems like they've gotten back to the office, the quicker they were really willing to acknowledge this working from home thing on a long-term basis is not working for our bottom line. And so those companies, they've come back. And in Greenville, we're already starting to see our vacancy deplete at a very quick rate, especially in those, under 10,000 square foot ranges. The larger companies, they're still struggling, I think, on the liability side on how quickly they can bring people back and how that needs to look to reopening and how to handle all of the HR demands while also being productive. And if they're service providers, providing that same level of service when the people aren't in the office. And so the larger groups are struggling to come back and compete with some of the smaller groups that have come back and are really almost back to what I would say was normal. I mean,
Right.
I remember having the conversations last year of, are we ever going to shake hands again? And it's like full on hugging again. I mean, it's like, it just seems like it just flipped. And maybe that's because we're in the South. Maybe it's because we're in a smaller town.
For sure.
It's some of both, but it is surprising to me how quickly it flipped back in Greenville. But when we talk to our Charlotte and our Atlanta counterparts, some of the larger CBRE offices in the Northeast, they haven't quite flipped that quickly. And there's still a lot of outstanding vacancy just because the larger groups aren't making the big decisions yet. They're pushing till end of summer to really go back.
Yep.
And so they're expecting that to kind of flip back to a degrey in September.
Which is interesting that like Greenville's kind of leading the market on having less vacancy.
Yeah, I guess the smaller businesses and being in the South, it just seemed to go back faster. But the bigger companies in Greenville still aren't back.
I had clients that they never left. Like
Right,
I would call them,
yeah.
I'm like, hey, we're remote, and they're like, well, we're not. I was like, okay, well, I will be.
Right.
Yeah, you are part of a larger company, so that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure.
So what are you seeing in terms of price, given that our supply is being eaten up? I mean, is it starting to get more expensive? Is it about the same?
Yeah, well, so that's interesting. So we have two things happening. So we still have a fair amount of larger vacancies, but I do think that those are going to get absorbed. And it was interesting just to watch the demographic shift of kind of all of those trends we already saw that were happening, of people moving to the Sun Belt, of people moving to maybe smaller cities, more boutique cities. They all got accelerated. So now our demographics are here too. And so we have a larger population. We have more demand for, retail, for jobs here, and so the larger companies are starting to follow, and the site selectors are starting to recognize that, and they are used to paying higher rates or even purchasing more expensive homes. We've seen our home values get driven up from kind of that migration pattern, but we've also started to see the construction pricing really push on rates too. And so with not just the vacancy, but the cost of construction, the cost of land, the cost of labor, all getting pushed up, we're seeing, part of it, maybe it's becoming a larger city, part of it's maybe inflation, but rates are definitely going up, and interest rates are going up as well. So with all of those things combined, you can't build new product anywhere close to what the old product is renting for. And so there is a demand for Class A space, higher quality space for that recruit employees and to be able to have a better retention rate of other employees. But the drive to Class A product and the gap where the A- and B product is still too large. So we are going to see rates creep up.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, I've been really curious about that, seeing that on the construction side, prices elevating, and I wonder what's the breaking point. Are we going to have a little bit of a drawback or a slowdown to reconcile some of that? Because can people still continue to afford to build at those elevated rates and make money? So,
yeah. So, I mean, it becomes a demand threshold too, but it doesn't mean that people are going to work from home, especially when you look at office space, because the labor is the most important and expensive portion of that.
Right.
And so if office ticks up, that doesn't mean, all right, well, we're just going to work from home. That maybe they lease a little bit less space, but that doesn't get rid of the need. From an apartment standpoint, maybe more folks start to consider moving to the suburbs versus paying downtown rents, and you start to see that shift. But you're still going to need housing units. You're still going to need office space. It just might shift people that previously insisted on being in the CBD. Maybe they start to consider some suburban office.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But the need for it is not going to go away.
Yeah.
So people might just have to consider more cost-effective solutions.
Right.
Which makes sense.
Yeah, so interesting. Greenville's growing up.
Yeah, we are.
Which is a good thing.
Yeah.
Back to Shelby, as you are in this market, what do you feel like are the most challenging parts of your job, and what are the most rewarding?
Okay, so the most challenging part of the job, it's juggling a lot with clients, what they need, and also just, we always joke in our office, the number of calls that we get where somebody says, I would really just like to find, a nice downtown building with parking, not too expensive, that is fairly move-in ready for, and that I really want the mortgage to be, less than what we're paying now in rent in the suburbs.
So super easy.
It's super easy. Just let me jump on that requirement right now, right? So just aligning what people want with what's actually out there, and kind of moderating expectations. Because it's often in education. Sometimes we feel like therapists. People get really upset when they just, and the gap between expectations of tenants and buyers and landlords and sellers right now seem just bigger than ever. Because with COVID, tenants and buyers, they feel like they should get a deal. Like, what do you mean? There's still a level of uncertainty. Like, who wants to own an office building right now? Can't you find me a deal? And the landlords are like, this is a moment in time. Like, we are not, giving up concessions or rates. And so just getting the meeting of the minds between those groups just seems more challenging than ever. What I find rewarding is when you do actually, you're able to provide, quality consultation to these clients, and that they appreciate it, and you do end up getting them in a place that they're very, very happy, and are able to help them through the process in a way that they appreciate and recognize the value that you're able to add. And then on the development side, I mean, there's just nothing more rewarding than saving some of these old buildings that would otherwise just crumble to the ground, and kind of cobbling that history back together, and sharing it with folks, and making it so much more tangible and
revitalizing the community. I mean, Newry is a perfect example of that, like what it is now compared to what it will be when you guys are finished.
Yeah, I mean, that right now everyone's really upset about the construction and the traffic and the noise and the dust, and this kind of the tough part with the community. But I think that in the end they'll be so excited with the end result, and so proud of the roots of our Greenville community, and the textile history, and just bringing that to the forefront, and really just honoring it. I think it's really cool.
Yeah, well, it seems like you have like really good vision for what you see for either a project or for a part of town that you would like to see, and I think that's really admirable. So it's fun to see.
Yeah. So
thank you.
Thinking about your career so far with CBRE, have there been any unique like growth opportunities that had come up that you're like, I don't know about that, or maybe you're questioning going in a certain direction, but it didn't end up working out amazingly, or just sort of different than what you thought?
Yeah, so early on, I thought I wanted to be an industrial broker, which I obviously ended up in the office sector, and wouldn't change that for the world. But that was kind of where I thought the Greenville market was really going to be more focused, just being between Atlanta and Charlotte, and so close to the ports, and having the inland port. And that would have been a great path too. And Greenville very much has such a strong, manufacturing and logistics base, but the office has really held its own as well. And those projects really do lend themselves to, the mixed use and the transformative kind of urban downtown. And so I enjoy that very much, being, more focused downtown in the central business district, or in the the close by outerlying suburbs. So it's been fun.
Well, do you have a mentor or mentors, and what did that relationship start like? What kind of questions do you or did you ask them? What does mentor relationships look like for you?
Yeah, so I have several. I think I'm fortunate to say that I really do have several. I mean, I consider Mark a mentor. We're partners, and he would tell you we're equals, but that's he definitely, I've learned so much from him. And then in graduate school, one of my professors, Bo Wallen, really became a mentor as well. And they were never like formalized mentor relationships. They were just people that I always felt like I could call with questions, and that would, spend the extra time when we had, projects we were working on something to explain something, and also like offered potential opportunities for me to learn and grow. I remember one particular project that I put in front of Bogue, and he did end up buying it and redeveloping it. And he let me sit in on the weekly meetings with the contractor, and the subs that were the ones that were really the project was focused on at that particular moment in the project. And that was just so valuable to be able to kind of learn the development process from start to end by going to his weekly site meetings. So those were, I would say, are some of the more valuable experience I've had from the mentorship. And in general, I would say now, just a lot of my peers, like, it's not the typical mentor-mentee relationship. It's all just, you get together and you learn from each other, and they might have this experience in this field and I might have this experience in this field, but we're always just, bouncing ideas off of each other and learning from one another.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. So within the CBRE's office, I guess, even though you guys may compete for listings, I'm sure there's different office teams. You guys are still kind of like open and collaborating and things like that.
Oh, absolutely. I've heard from other CBRE offices that it can be a bit more cutthroat in maybe some of the larger, bigger cities, but our office has always been, respectful, and, we collaborate. And
That's awesome.
yeah, I mean, it's too small of a market and too small of an office to not, work well with one another.
Yeah, and it's really valuable too, like when, you've got like another teammate or, someone else within the office and they've had a different experience, and, being able to like talk about that and get advice and things like that. So that's great.
And we're fortunate that our managing director at our office also manages the Columbia and Charlotte office. So when we go to kind of pool resources or seek kind of best-in-class practices or just get feedback on a transaction, we can reach out to those offices and then always just use the network to reach out to, bigger markets too. So when we're trying to figure out what's the next thing coming, what's the next big office trend, it's really helpful to have kind of the larger national pool.
And do you see that typically when those trends come, do you see them going through the bigger cities first before they hit here, or is it just
typically?
Depends?
Yeah, typically we do see the larger markets embrace certain trends before we do. Like in office space, it's become much more amenity based, almost like multifamily. Having the shared conference rooms or gyms and outdoor space is a huge trend, even before COVID, and then especially with COVID, to have dedicated outdoor space for employees, and then also to have more of like a concierge service rather than the typical just maybe like lobby security. You have a service that you can have your groceries dropped off, your dry cleaning picked up, your car valeted picked up, brought to you. Like those are definitely more service-oriented trends that we're seeing in the larger cities that are just starting to kind of make their way to Greenville.
So it's like the idea of like work-life integration rather than the work-life balance idea, which I do feel that's coming.
Yeah. That's awesome. I mean, I personally would welcome that. It sounds great.
I guess I could get my groceries dropped off at work.
So are you advising your clients, like what you're seeing in terms of trends, like your landlord clients, maybe, and maybe you guys should think about doing this kind of thing, or do they generally already know about it?
Yeah, well, so in some of the, it tends to hit the Class A CBD market first, because those are the groups that are willing to pay up for these sorts of amenities and these services, because it also depends on you might have a law firm and a CBD willing to pay for it, but the call center in the suburbs, it just not as applicable.
Yep.
So as we start to push rates and as we start to look at building new buildings in the CBD, what's the next best thing? Like, what are you going to offer that the older buildings have not offered? And yes, in addition to cool, nice, technology-laden space, it's going to be very service-oriented and amenity-heavy. That's going to attract the leasing. And the new building in Greenville, Camperdown, I would say, has done a good job of offering things that the Greenville market hasn't necessarily seen before.
Yeah, for sure. And in terms of that development, do you know if it's leased up? So people respond to it?
100% fully leased, yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. Very cool. Well, touching a little bit back on COVID, how have you seen resiliency play out in the commercial real estate industry during that time? And then to piggyback on top of that, the $1 million question is, are people leasing more space or less space, or is it to be seen right now?
Yeah. So Greenville was voted like one of the most resilient cities. So I would definitely say that we've bounced back very, very quickly. there was a survey done during COVID that was really interesting, and it was, they asked a bunch of companies, how much space do you see yourself needing in the future? And it was like significantly less, about the same, more. And it was like 80% of companies that answered like significantly less.
Really?
And then they went back and they resurveyed and asked those same questions at Q1 of this year. And the majority of folks said about the same. The number of folks that were in the, significantly less category had dropped from like 80 to like 15%. Like, so some folks I do think need less space, and they're going to work on that flexibility where working from home all the time is probably not going to happen, but working from home, maybe a couple days a week or something like that would be an option. But technology is super important with that. So in our office, we have, say 15 hardwall offices and maybe 20 workstations. And so of the 18 brokers, you come in and you pick where you want to work, and you have that flexibility. And of course, we have other divisions, property management, and it works because we can come in anywhere with our laptops. Everybody has the same laptop. You plug it into a workstation, and then you immediately have all your screens. Everything works seamlessly. You can access, the cloud server and everything like that. It's all the same keyboards. It works very functionally. We all have lockers. We all have our personal dedicated filing cabinets. But it's a massive shift. It's not just lease less space and it works. It becomes a major investment in technology and training and kind of rebranding. And so I think there will be some of that. And overall, maybe we'd only need 90% of the office space previously, with people leasing a little bit less space, except for the fact of the amount of migration we've seen here.
Yeah.
And when you take that into account, I think we're going to need more office space than we previously had, even though some groups might be leasing less. Overall, we have more demand because we have a larger labor pool now with the amount of people that have moved here. And I think most companies have accepted that, and it's not one size fits all. Some groups, the more technology, less collaborative type offices, like they might be able to have a larger base of people working from home more often versus, people that are more collaborative or sales oriented that require more training or something like that need to physically be in the office.
Right.
And so I think now more than ever, you're going to see just more consulting with these folks and really drilling into their business and deciding what's right for them. But I do think after this COVID era, employees are going to demand a little bit more flexibility than they've had in the past.
Oh, sure. And how often do you work from home versus like being in an office or being on a project?
Yeah, so that's a question. And before COVID, like I would pretty much go in the office every day. If I was in town, I was going to show up to the office. Now, I would say that I communicate with my partners because we value that collaboration. So if one or two or if we're going to be in the office, then it's like, great, well, let's show up, and then we can all get together. With summer schedules, if people aren't in the office, then if the people I want to collaborate with aren't there, then I might as well just work from home. So CBRE kind of struggled with that initially because a lot of people view that like, yeah, I see the value in collaboration, but if I show up to an empty office and nobody's working there, then where's the value? I'm just going to work from home.
Right.
So there's some sort of point where you got to get that scale of everybody back in the office for people to see the value in the collaboration. And how do you force it? Can you force it? What does that look like legally?
Yeah,
And so for me, I would say I'm back in the office maybe 70% of the time. And that's just a function of kind of coordinating with my colleagues and saying, hey, are you going to be there? We can catch up. And it is much more valuable to work in the office if other folks are there. But if my two partners are on vacation, then I might just work from home.
Yeah.
I feel like it's like being intentional now. It's not like, oh, I just know that I go into the office every day. It's like, okay, well, I have these choices. Let me make the right choice
Right.
for today, which could be working from home, and it could be going into the office. It's just about, like, it takes a little bit of extra, like, thought, I guess.
Yeah,
in
you
some
have
ways.
options,
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's nice to have that choice, too, at the same time.
Yes.
Like,
I would
It's-
agree.
Right,
Yeah.
and I think that goes to empowering your employees
Right.
to give them that choice
Right.
Mhm.
and respecting them to, manage their time and their resources efficiently.
Yeah, absolutely. So one more follow-up question about CBRE's office. How are people being receptive to that? Like with the hoteling kind of spaces, like coming in and taking, are they
Yeah.
liking it? I mean, that's a big,
It's a
yes
big
or no.
change
Mhm.
to go to what we call as Office 360, and overall we absolutely love it.
Okay,
Anytime
cool.
anytime something's new, it takes a little while for people to adapt, but we were coming out of a very dated office space, and we went into just this very cool techie
beautiful,
space,
yeah.
and they've spent a lot of time and energy on the technology, getting that like white noise just right. And we have really cool event space where we can like entertain and have clients, and that kind of goes back to some of the amenities.
Sure.
We have a great rooftop, and they're doing a lot for the culture in it too, to bring people out into what they call the heart, which is kind of the center of the space where everybody hangs out and has lunch, and they provide like healthy snacks and drinks and like all of that, which you automatically think to the cost of it, but overall you have all your employees actually like hanging out and collaborating and not leaving the office for 30 minutes to go get a snack.
Well, back to
So-
your point, getting them there in the first place.
Right,
you know?
right. So they've done a lot of little things, I think, just to facilitate people enjoying the space and collaborating, and that's been just hugely effective. And so, yes, I would still like my dedicated office where I don't have to pack up all my things or put them in the locker at the end of the day. It has forced me to be a little bit more organized, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
But if I had to choose a bucket, right, I think what they've given us is well worth the trade-off. So I'm pleased to have given up my private dedicated office for everything that they're offering us now. And at any given time, like, there's always an office open. We thought that there was going to be like a mad rush. People were going to like come in and grab all the dedicated offices. And then whoever came in last would just end up with a workstation. It's actually not like that at all.
Really?
People kind of have their favorite workstations, and then they just grab an office when they need one. I have yet to walk into that space, and if I wanted an office, one not be available.
That's so interesting.
Which is nice.
Yeah. Very cool.
Because we're headed towards that soon. Once they start having people come back, and I think August 1st is our like, hey,
Yeah,
it's
a
gonna
lot
be
of
that
people's
time.
day. Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see once we can start getting more people in. Because right now, truly, it's like if the partners aren't there, there's no reason for me to be there because none of my staff are there, none of my seniors are there.
Right.
So trying to figure out how I can collaborate with my teams and have them excited about coming in is just an interesting, kind of dilemma to have.
Well, I will say that everyone's threshold also for just fun has sort of like decreased. So they can do like very little, and we're like, that was awesome. Like, this is so fun. Thanks, guys. Like they started like pushing around a bar cart every other Thursday with like snacks and drinks at like 3:30. And we're all
That sounds pretty awesome.
Yeah, I mean, we're super excited about it. But even just, everybody tell us what Chick-fil-A milkshake you want. We're going to go get, just like little stuff.
Little
We're like,
stuff
this is great.
You get so excited because you're like, well, I didn't have this at home. Although I did
Yeah.
DoorDash. We had DoorDash Pass for all of COVID, like when we
Really?
were home.
That's a nice benefit.
It was a nice benefit, but I still had to pay the extra and the tip. So,
Well.
so when I'm back in the office, they can bring me a Chick-fil-A milkshake. I'll petition for that.
That's really cool.
Thank you for the idea.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what's in store for you next? Like when you look out over the next year, 5 years, 10 years, as uncertain as we know it will be, do you have any plans for yourself?
So my goal has always been, like, from the time that I sort of figured out this commercial real estate thing, which isn't really, that difficult of a thing. Like, I always thought of it as like riding a roller coaster. You have to be like this high to ride the ride. Like, you have to be like this this smart to kind of figure out. It's not rocket science, right? It's just, underwriting returns and, repeatable sort of knowledge bases. So my goal was always to create the income stream that I could live off of, with the goal of being able to retire at 40. Not to say that I would, not to say that I am gonna quit doing it, but that was always the goal, was to be able to own enough sort of investment assets that I was able to do whatever it is that I wanted at 40. And so that's been the goal. And, I enjoy what I do so much that I don't know that I would change it. But initially it was, buy something every year. So just, early on, it might have just been like a $50,000 2-bedroom, 1-bath house that I could rent. And then eventually they turned into much larger things. But the goal was to be able to have the income stream to retire on if I wanted to, or just, see how long it took me to actually get bored on the beach. I would like the novelty to know how long it takes me to say, all right.
Right.
I need to get a job.
Oh, for sure.
And this is what I want to do.
So is that your first plan upon retiring, whenever that may be, is okay, it's time to head to the beach and see how long it takes
to get bored.
How many days in a row are you going to surf?
Surf 300 days out of the year.
That's
that
right.
would be amazing. But at the same time, you don't ever want to. If you pull back completely, it's tough to get back in. So I do want to be able to maintain some level of connection in the commercial real estate world, and with my partners and working in commercial real estate at CBRE and then also on development projects. But I want to be able to have the choice to pull back some on just the amount of hours and have more flexibility, which is something that COVID did afford all of us, is the ability to work a little bit more remotely. So maybe, split some time and, work 9 months out of the year in Greenville and work 3 months out of the year in Costa Rica or somewhere else, something like that. So the goal would be to have the income stream so I feel like I have the choice. Yeah. And then maybe test it out a little bit.
How are you on the goal right now? How are you tracking?
I think I'm tracking. It's hard to say with so many big projects in the works, and then it's hard to stop, right? It's hard not to put another big project in the pipeline that then anchors you for, some of these things take 3, 4, 5 years by the time you get a CO. So I think that if I quit putting massive projects in the pipeline in 2 years, then I think that I think it's feasible.
So let me ask you a personal personal question.
Okay.
We think very similarly in terms of passive income streams and stuff like that. I've been more focused on single family up to this point. You started that way, and now you've gone commercially. When you sold all your single family or your small multis, and then now you're doing these bigger projects, did you see a delay in that income stream, or was it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
Absolutely. Yeah, because the commercial projects take a lot longer, and the single family homes, it's very easy. You buy one, you just put a renter in it, it pretty much cash flows immediately. But then if you want to take all of that cash out, so if you bought an existing multifamily complex, there wouldn't be a delay.
Sure.
But if you take your cash out that's working today for you on a day-to-day basis and you start ground up construction with it, you get a couple years of gap.
But I guess you're looking at those projections and you're okay, 3 years from now, it's going to be well worth that conversion.
Yeah. Well, and so I still have the brokerage job that keeps me day to day. The development income was always, the goal was pushed out to, when I was 40 for that to be kind of paying the bills. So
that makes sense. So
right now, I'm not living off of my investment assets.
Yeah.
I'm living off my brokerage income.
Yeah.
So to take those, single family homes and trade my short-term income for a long-term goal made sense for me at that time.
Yep, I get it. That makes complete sense. Yeah, very interesting.
But you could still, bundle them, sell them, super popular right now.
Yeah.
There's so much demand for
Yeah.
single family assets, and then 1031 into something commercial that was existing, that was maybe triple net, less management intensive. Because what I found was 1 was great, even 5 were great. But as you started to get more and more and more, that 1 headache a month turned into like 5 headaches a day, and then distracted you from your real job, at least for me.
Well, you were managing your own, right?
Yeah, I was, which...
You almost have to because of
yeah,
the
it cuts into your return. Yeah,
Yeah.
you can pay out 10%, and your return was 15%, then
Yeah, I know.
kind of hurts. So...
Right,
Yeah.
retire by
I
40
know.
is a new goal for me. I need to get started on buying a property.
Yeah,
I
we
think.
can talk later. I've got lots of thoughts on that. So last question on this, and then we'll move on. But the commercial stuff, are you the monthly cash flow versus the long-term appreciation when you sell? Like, are you underwriting your deals for cash flow, or are you just like basically like, okay, it's going to sell in 5 or 10 years at this cap rate, and I'm going to make this amount of money? And
yeah,
I guess what's more important?
That's a great question. And so I recently got engaged to an investment broker.
Congrats.
Thank you. And so we think about things entirely differently. So I always just look at the cash flow like I am never going to sell it. And you know what? I have actually never sold anything of mine.
Yeah.
Ever.
get that.
I've only bought real estate. I've never actually, for myself. Rob, my fiance, however, I mean, he's looking at everything at like a cap rate, roll into the next deal sort of thing. And so... and when you actually finance one of these things, the only thing that matters is how does the bank you're financing it with, or your equity, or whatever it is, how do they look at it, and how's your debt structured? But for me, it's the income stream. I don't want to ever be depleting a savings account, right? You don't know
Right.
how long you're going to live. You don't know how to budget on that. Whereas if I know I have a passive income stream of $300,000 a year or something like that, like that's really... it's easy and measurable and known, and that's comfortable for me.
Yeah.
So that's always been my goal.
Well, it relates directly to your goal, because
Right.
you're like, how much can I step back? Okay, now I'm getting this much a month. That makes sense, that correlation.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And your rents increase with inflation. You just hold on to them. But then Rob would, sometimes challenge me on but you can sell it for this, roll it into this, and, leverage it, and then have this. And it does work. Like that whole invest, reinvest, I don't know what will happen to the 1031 model going forward, but historically that's worked really well for people too. It's not my model. It's just not as comfortable and measurable for me, but that's because I don't understand it as well. It's not what I do day to day, and so we'll probably have a combination of both, because Rob does the cap rate investment side and I do the never sell anything sort of model.
That'll be interesting to see what happens. But hey, it's best of both worlds.
Best of both worlds.
Yeah,
So
it
a
really
little bit
is.
of both.
Yeah.
So it's also interesting to see like what your comfort zone is versus like what my comfort zone would be for like buying property. It's none right now.
Right.
So
Yeah.
you're like, hey, I have all these properties, but like it's safe for me to like keep them, and I'm like, that's not even safe for me. So understanding like where people's different like risk levels lie.
Well, you start off
because
small,
of like what
right?
you understand,
You start
and
off
like
small.
you slowly push your
Shelby's
comfort
at
zone
like
out.
step 20,
I know,
and you're like
yes.
step 1. So they're just different thought processes and
Right.
stuff that you've got to start to understand, and you learn by doing. At least I
Yes,
do.
yeah.
Yeah,
So you
for
do
sure.
one, and then oh look at how much income I'm generating every month. Let me
Right.
go do another one of these. And,
You don't jump in at step 20.
Right.
You definitely, like, you do one and you're like, oh, well, that worked pretty well. I could do another one. And then you make a little bit of a mistake somewhere, but it's not a massive, like,
It doesn't.
it doesn't like totally undo everything that you've done for yourself. You might have like a $5,000 setback, right?
Right.
And then, you figure it out, and then you end up making more, and, because of it, and it gets there eventually.
Right. I think it's what I said on a different episode. Like your comfort zone, you have to just slowly push it out further and further.
right.
You like take a
Yeah.
step outside of it, and then you're like, okay, take another step, and eventually your comfort zone is much bigger than it was
Yeah.
5-10 years ago.
Yeah, but mine still has strong limitations.
I respect.
And
Yeah,
Rob and I
which is okay.
constantly go back and forth on a lot of those things.
But you're probably making him think more about the income stream and the passive side of it too, or maybe he's not as focused
We
on
do.
that.
We start flopping in some ways. It's
Yeah.
it's interesting.
Yeah,
We
that's
definitely
awesome.
accept each other's influence on that sort of thing.
That's awesome. Well, back to real estate real quick, and then we'll wrap this up, or I guess the commercial real estate side of it instead of the personal side of it. But what advice would you give to someone looking to get into this field? Like, what's been important for you that you would tell them, hey, absolutely do this, or don't do that, or anything like that?
Yeah, I would say find good people, not so focused on what it is precisely that you want to do. Like, I'm glad that I wasn't so focused on being an industrial broker that I let the office opportunity pass by, because it's very much the people that are willing to kind of teach you and mentor you and help you through that process. I'd also say if there's somewhere that you want to live, go live there, because once you learn a real estate market, it's tough to move.
Mm-hmm.
So feeling like, well, I'll just get started here, and then one day I'm going to move to Charleston, New York, or whatever it is. I would go ahead and move there, and then it takes a lot of work to learn a market, know a market, and meet all of those players. To start over is just so tough.
Yeah. I echo that entirely. I've thought many times about moving to different places. I like change and I like big cities and things like that. But it's for that very reason. I'm just like, I can't imagine starting over.
Yeah, it'd be so tough.
Yeah.
So I did it backwards. I was like, well, I'll work for CBRE and then move somewhere else. And it was like, yeah, never. As long as I'm in commercial real estate, like, I'm not learning another market.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe you can just purchase vacation homes or et cetera, wherever else. And
Yeah, I'm
travel
sure. I'm sure I'll end up.
Costa Rica, right?
Probably so.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, cool. Well, this has been awesome. Let's, I guess, get into the our
Rapid fire.
Rapid fire questions.
Right. What do you like to do for fun?
What do I like to do for fun? You guys probably both already know this, but I like to surf. I like to travel wherever I can, and like the more random, remote, the better. Spent a lot of time in Costa Rica, Nicaragua, Panama, but some of the more fun ones have been, Fiji or the Marshall Islands. But that's my passion. I've surfed since I was maybe like 10 years old, and still try and get to the ocean as often as possible, preferably the Pacific.
Yes. Yeah, that's so cool. Well, this kind of goes along with that. What's your favorite place to travel?
Yeah, Costa Rica it's so easy. It's fast. It's consistent surf. It's a blue zone, which means people live on average much longer. It's just such a healthy, lifestyle. And the food's great. The people are great. Working on the Spanish. But yeah, Costa Rica would be the pick.
That's cool. I've never been there. I need to add it to the list.
Yeah.
Sounds pretty awesome.
It's been added to my list for sure.
Yeah.
Favorite podcast?
I feel like such a one-trick pony, but I'm going to go with Surf Simply, which is based in Nosara, which is an awesome surf school that Rob and I love to go to. But they have a podcast that just drills into the physics of surfing and the trends and the latest and greatest board design and just so many different things, and I find it very, very interesting.
That is interesting.
Sounds like you're nerdy about surfing, which is fun to hear about.
I'm nerdy in general.
What is your favorite TV show that you're binge watching right now?
Oh, gosh. So I have binge watched a lot of TV lately, but I'm a little late to the game on Homeland, but I'm finally on season 7 of Homeland, which was a major investment in COVID to start Homeland to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
That's been.
How many seasons are there out of that now?
There are 8.
Okay, I quit at some point. I won't say what happened after I quit, just not to give it away, just in case it hasn't happened yet for you. But man, it was a really good show.
There's another one on Netflix called, I think it's Sweet Tooth. Y'all,
No.
I've seen a preview for it, and it's on my list.
Oh, it's really good. There's only one season out of it.
Okay, isn't it the one where there's a little kid with a deer face on it on the front cover?
It's like post-apocalyptic, and babies start being born as animals. It almost has a COVID. There's a pandemic, I think the writers must have written it
Yes.
during
Yes.
COVID.
I
but
saw that, yeah.
I like all kind of the escapism, fantastical
Yeah.
sort of science fiction type
same.
shows.
Okay.
Those are
It's a good
also my
escapism.
favorites. Yes.
Have
Yeah.
you seen The Americans along the same line of Homeland? It's a little
No.
different, but you would like that
I
one
need
too.
that one
It's
too.
like a Russian
Okay.
spy, or 2 Russian spies come to America and they're implanted into like an
I'm-
American family
Yes.
environment.
I have watched the first episode of that one.
Yeah,
I have
we
not.
got hooked on that one. It was
Okay.
really
It's
good.
really
That's what I
good. My
need as a
favorite
new
thing is that the
addiction.
2 main characters, they got married.
Yeah, well, they were forced to get married.
Well, no, but like the actors got married in real
In
life.
real life?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes. That's my favorite part is
Interesting.
when
Yeah.
people fall in love
Yeah.
in real life.
Interesting. True
All
Blood,
right.
that happened on True Blood too.
Really?
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. It's always fun until they break up and then you're sad.
You're like,
Yeah.
But okay, the most important question for us
Yes.
is what is your favorite restaurant in Greenville or the Upstate, and what do you get there?
Oh, yes, great question. So Urban Wren is my favorite
Yes, I love
restaurant.
that place.
They change their menu very often. So I love their paper bag salad,
Mhm.
and I like their cauliflower dumplings,
oh yeah, those were
I've had
and
those, they're delicious.
any sort of their like any sort of like pork dish that they have is always amazing.
I have been to Urban Wren, but I think I need to go back. It's about time for me.
They have a good brunch too.
awesome.
Well-
Cool. Well, thank you so much for coming in and spending time with us today and telling us your
Yeah.
story. I mean, it's been awesome to talk to you and get to learn a little bit more. So just really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.